Hidden Object Guru with a check-in on some of the games I've sampled recently. As always, I'm going to be rating these based on how interested I am in finishing them. First up, we have Hellsweeper VR. Remember Sirento, the VR game about high-tech ninjas slashing cyborg sumos while flying geishas throw knives at them from a distance? Hopefully you do, because it's wonderful. Seriously, I played that game so much that I wound up discovering that the Endless mode locks up on PSVR once you get a little past the 70th level. So, I was delighted to boot up Hellsweeper and discover that Sirento is back. Only this time, as the title suggests, the action has been moved to Hell. This time, the gameplay has been moved to arena battle format, with the character following a roguelite structure as they teleport from one nightmarish locale to the next, slaughtering hordes of cobbled together demonic zombies. There's a wealth of weapons, and the action is fast and satisfying. That said, there's a few drawbacks that keep it from being as good as it could be. The biggest problem? Motion controls don't work fantastically well on the Quest 2. Combining spells by moving hands together is finicky at best, and it's weirdly hard to reload revolvers with a flick of the wrist. I'd like to play more of this when they fine-tune the controls, but until then, it's just a 7 out of 10. The Seventh Guest, VR. Like a lot of people who played PC games in the 90s, The Seventh Guest was a major factor in the decision to get a CD drive. All the puzzles of The Mist only with a coherent story and real-life actors? How could you not want to play that? Well, it's back with refreshed puzzles and a freely explorable house. And it's a delight. Being able to move around the room as dramatic scenes play out in the form of 3D ghosts is a complete transformation of the experience, as are the puzzles built around interacting with the environment. Did you enjoy being able to spy on a story in the invisible hours? This offers all of those thrills along with some twisty puzzles to solve. Not all of the puzzles are fantastic, of course. While most feel fairly natural, there's a few with directions and clues that are a little too poorly written to be helpful. Luckily, a hint system can help the player move through the stickier parts, so long as they're willing to seek out the hint coins scattered around Stauf's haunted mansion. The game plays beautifully, and I can't wait to finish it. So of course, this gets a 9 out of 10. Sweet dreams, Alex. It's a tower defense game without the tower defense. You know the part of a tower defense where you build a maze so that the swarming foes take as long as possible to get to the core, giving you extra time to blast them all with towers? Well, this is that, without the attack towers. The setup is super cute. A little girl is sleeping and the player has to prevent nightmares from reaching her. I played a dozen levels and it never stopped being charming. While I didn't see the later levels that bring in different biomes and new mechanics, I will say I'm excited to check them out. And the game offers such chill vibes that it's going to be something I'm sure I'll wind up doing. 8 out of 10. The Infernal Masquerade. It's Minesweeper with vampires! And some helpful features designed to make things work in 3 dimensions. Players can scan suspects for heartbeats, a limited number of times to find out who's safe to unmask, and then each unmasked human offers an amount of vampires that are directly around them, as well as a clue about how to identify one of the vampires. There's little bits of story to keep things moving, but fundamentally, this is just an entertaining exercise in logical deduction, with one thing that improves it over the original Minesweeper. The identities of the vampires aren't established until the first person is unmasked. This makes it impossible to lose the game on the first click. That alone earns this a 6 out of 10. Lizards must die. It's an ambitious enough premise. Medieval swordsmen have to battle monsters and aliens. Unfortunately, the janky combat keeps it from really working. The combat is slow and deliberate, but the enemies zip around weightlessly, which keeps it from feeling satisfying. There's no depth to the combat, with the player only able to awkwardly avoid getting hit, and then try to leverage their swing length and magical abilities to do enough damage before the enemies manage to winnow their health down to nothing. If there was a little more depth to the combat, I'd be interested to play more of this, but right now I just don't see it. 3 out of 10. Deadly Rain. It's a wave shooter operating on the basic COD Zombies format. Run around, shoot zombies, unlock new areas. Only, here's the thing. I couldn't figure out how to unlock any new areas. The game starts out with the player in a small yard with a house, gazebo, and 3 locked gates. I played 25 waves of this thing, finding a half-dozen variety of new zombies to kill with the 2 weapons I had access to. Are there more weapons? More zombies? Wish I knew, because again, there's no clear way to open the gates. There's no currency to spend on them. I couldn't find tools or keys no matter how hard I scoured the small area. Grenades and bullets, don't blow them open. Eventually, I just gave up. I almost feel bad about judging the game harshly since I saw so little of it, but I think a lot of that's on them, because they really could have communicated this game's objectives a lot more clearly. 2 out of 10. Edge of Survival. Hey, remember how I keep getting sent games made with the same develop your own survival game toolkit? It happened again! And once again, I found myself completely at a loss as to what I was supposed to do other than follow the same basic crafting tutorial I'd done in all of the games made with this kit. I did make a fun new discovery this time. You can start walking in a direction, then switch to the map, and you'll just keep walking indefinitely. That's not really a gameplay mechanic so much as a fun glitch to save me a little time and effort. Also on the subject of fun glitches, I ran into a bush that can seemingly be harvested indefinitely. But I didn't run into anything else that separates this from any other version of this kit game that I've already played. 2 out of 10. Cannibal Island Survival. Speaking of differences, this game was also made with apparently the same toolkit I was just talking about, but at least they had a few changes this time. First off, it starts with a bit of story delivered through black screen and text on it. You've been in a helicopter crash on Cannibal Island and have to build a fort to protect yourself from said cannibal hordes. So at least we're getting some motivation for the building actions this time. There's also a couple of interesting changes. It uses the log carrying mechanic from the forest, which it's also cribbing the story from, of course. And chopping down trees involves knocking sections out in order, which looks good and works even better. They still have the annoying protein, carbs, water system of feeding yourself that nobody asked for and no one likes. But the very fact that it has a completely different map than all the other games I've seen built from this toolkit puts it head and shoulders above the rest. I mean, there's better survival games out there, but at least they're putting in the effort this time. 4 out of 10. Tribe. Primitive Survival. Speaking of better survival games, check this out. NPCs, tasks to complete, a story with a clear goal in mind, satisfying harvesting, a skill system, a building process that was cribbed from Green Hell, but looks way better than that game's did. This thing is simply fantastic. I often talk about how important it is to have a great tutorial, and Tribe just nails it completely, transforming the process of learning how to play the game into a compelling adventure. This is the kind of crafting adventure that we've been waiting for, and I can't wait to get back to it. 8 out of 10. Midnight Acres. And then we're back to people who just aren't getting the basics right. Midnight Acres has a decent enough loop. Grow plants to buy weapons and seeds, kill monsters to protect your crops, repeat. But what is any of this in service of? The game seems to think that the player should be motivated to play it just because it's there. This isn't Mount Everest. It's a farming game with tower defense. There's no context for the action, no goals to accomplish, no characters to interact with. This mixture of farming and base defense is conceptually interesting, and the fishing minigame is surprisingly engaging. But why should I keep up with this when I can just go back to Tribe? 3 out of 10. Fallen Ninja. It's another sword-fighting game from the makers of Gangsta Sniper and the Naked Warrior series. I'll be perfectly honest with you, they're not getting a lot better. There's extremely basic combat. Slash at enemies, block their slashes, shoot arrows into their legs from a distance, because they always have their shields raised. It's simple and repetitive, getting old incredibly quickly, especially since there's only one kind of enemy no matter which level you try. A guy with a sword and a shield that matches your own exactly. Sometimes the guy is big, with a different color scheme, but it's always the same mechanics and abilities. Hopefully they'll do better next time, huh? 2 out of 10. Samawa Idol. It's an idol clicker about killing slimes and nothing but slimes. It's appealing enough watching some towers blowing up slimes, but the game's lack of ambition and sluggish upgrade tree keep it from being particularly appealing. The player can only ever unlock 3 towers, which makes the player feel underpowered no matter how highly they upgrade them. More importantly though, the game hides even the smallest incremental upgrading of their abilities behind hours of clicking or waiting around. Without the ability to buy masses of auto-attackers, and the exponential speed at which enemy health increases, players will be forced to reset their progress basically every 5 levels after they get to 50. And with no more towers to unlock beyond the first 3, what's the motivation to keep going? A lot of the frustration is down to the fact that the upgrades can only happen if the player kills a ghost, which can only appear in boss fights after the aforementioned 50th level, and even then, there's only a small percentage chance you'll actually get one. I got to level 100, and I only saw 4 ghosts the entire run. There's a bit of a slog to all clicker games, but generally players are offered ways to speed up the early game so that they can quickly get back to the part that was holding them up. But I left this thing on for more than a day, and it never got any better. Largely because there's no way to auto-buy upgrades, meaning the game requires way more attention than an idle clicker really should. One odd thing worth mentioning, the game uses the letter T to represent billions, and P to represent trillions. Something to do with the language of the developers, maybe? It's weird. This is all fixable if the developers want to, but right now this is just a 4 out of 10. Hidden Shapes, Cat Realm, and Trick or Cats. This is a cute set of puzzle games, and literally nothing more. Each one of the 2 games offers 20 puzzles to complete. All of them line art pictures of extremely cute cats in costumes. Seriously, there's one spider cat that is just bonkers cute in the Halloween pack. The pics are cut up into squares and the player rotates them to make the pictures. Can't figure out which way to spin them? Press a button and the game shows you which pieces are incorrect. Perfect for people looking for an easy platinum or who want a puzzle to help young children learn hand-eye coordination. I don't fit either category, so this is a 3 out of 10 for me. Tioa A Stigma. Pretty much the opposite of child-friendly, both of these games offer intense body horror experiences. A Stigma, which is also free on Steam, by the way, is about drawing lines on a maze without doubling over more than once. Also, there's boss fights and faces being torn off, revealing bloody skulls. It's a lot to take in. Good puzzles, but extremely challenging and requiring way faster reflexes than you're probably expecting, like Battletoads unicycle race kind of reflexes. Then we have Tioa, which is a side-scrolling puzzle adventure set in a world filled with hideously sexualized monster imagery cribbed from the work of HOGuru. You have no idea how carefully I have to cut these clips to avoid showing you the awfulness that this game is built around. Great puzzles and a super intriguing world, but the nightmarish visuals. The game has a couple of content warnings at the start, and it might actually need more. They're probably going to keep me from being able to finish it. Still, a genuinely impressive pack of horror puzzle games. 6 out of 10. I've been the Hidden Object Guru. Thanks for watching. If there's any games you think I should check out, please drop in the comments section below the video. If you had a good time, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you back here when I've played some more games, but until then I'll say that's right. Au revoir.